All right. Hello and welcome to Gratitude Speaks. I am Marty Marr. Some people call me Uncle Marty. I'm a man of many titles. And here today with Halsey. And very excited to bring Halsey in here on this podcast. We care and we share with others about our personal experience with communal living and gratitude as a tool for happiness. And today, I'm very excited to talk with Halsey. He is a very close friend of mine. We've known each other for a few years now. Someone I very much love and respect for your dedication to recovery and your spiritual life and all these things that you are doing as a dynamic person. But today, I guess, let's open up with a question to focus on communal living. So I'm curious if you can tell us a little about kind of how you felt, if you can take yourself back to where you were living before you moved into our recovery house and tell us about how you were feeling about that, maybe some of your older experience. I believe you were at Oxford long ago.
Yeah.
If you just kind of tell us about how that looked and felt at the time.
Well, like ever since I moved out of my mom's house, I stayed in my mom's house for a long time in active addiction until I was about 26 years old. And ever since then, everywhere I've lived has been communal living. Even in addiction, I was living in communal living. I've never lived alone. I've always lived with other people just for financial reasons. But also, I'm not really interested in living alone. It doesn't agree with me. So like it's interesting to think about living in communal living before having a recovery house structure and then living in one that has the recovery house structure and seeing how resentments over dumb little stuff almost ruined multiple friendships for me. Even in recovery, I lived in two places that weren't recovery houses, and both times friendships were tested and damaged from them. So the first, like when I first got out of treatment back in 2018, I moved into an Oxford house in Severna Park. It is no longer open. But when I first got there, see the Oxford house.
So was that the one that they recently closed? I know
Not recently, no. It closed.
Dan was talking about moving out of it. Is it that
G,
one?
yeah. That wasn't recent though. I mean, it was
Gotcha.
relatively recent. Like I'd say it was like 2 years ago now, maybe. I want to say about 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
already been
maybe
2
a year
years.
and a half. I mean,
I
I'm
remember you
terrible.
talking about that. I didn't know if it had actually happened or not.
Yes. So the funny thing is, so covering the Oxford house. So like when I first moved in there, the thing that like I love the idea of Oxford houses, but the thing is that the majority gets the vote. So when I first moved in there, it was people were not working a program. I was 30 to 60 days clean, and I was the one that was like, we don't have drug tests here. So I ordered drug tests for us. I'm like the newest member of the house. And a buddy of mine from treatment, we both went there together. And we saw this place really improve because, we were about this thing. We were about recovery and stuff. And slowly but surely, we saw it really improve and become like a real community. And to be honest, just to share about my story, I relapsed while I was living there, and I hid it. I was using kratom, which doesn't show up on drug tests, and I was getting away with it. And I got honest, and they didn't kick me out. And slowly but surely, the majority wins the vote. So me not working a program and other people not working a program in the house, it became not a very conducive place for recovery. And when on my final relapse of a string of relapses there, I actually ended up moving out and going into another, a house full with recovery, people in recovery, but it was not a recovery house. And that was another place where resentments kind of ran the show. And there was a lot of issues and conflicts of personality and stuff like that. And I lived there for almost exactly a year before I moved out. Then I moved in with a friend of mine who's not in recovery.
Was that the bed bug house?
That was the bed bug house. Yes. There was a guy who had bed bugs there who did not do anything to treat them, and I kept getting them in my room, removing all my clothes, putting them in trash bags, putting diatomaceous earth throughout the whole thing. And
So this shows I think a lot about how laid back you can be if you breezed over that and said there were some issues at the house. You
there
had
were some
you had,
issues.
you had
Oh yeah.
multiple rounds of bed bugs. Like
Yeah, the whole time I was there, bed bugs, the whole time. So I would work my butt off getting rid of these bed bugs over and over and over again. And this guy who I shared a wall with, my next door, he's the next room over, he wasn't doing anything about the bed bugs.
Hmm.
And so inevitably they would migrate back over to my room. And I cleared out everything in my room, got rid of bed sheets, got rid took my stuff to dry cleaners multiple times, got rid of a bunch of clothes. I did that like every 2 months or so.
Hmm.
I was doing that. And I was doing it the whole time that I was there. And then right when I was about to move out, that same guy got COVID, lied about getting a COVID test to the whole house. And then everybody in the house got sick, and we were like, so you got the COVID test. He said he got the COVID test and he was negative. And then when everybody else in the house got sick, got COVID tests and found out they had COVID, we were like, I'm pretty sure that was COVID. And then he finally admitted that he never got COVID. So I left there with the biggest resentment of my life. It was the same guy that gave me bed bugs the entire time I was there, and got me COVID right as I was moving out. So I had to stay for another 2 weeks there before I moved into my next like house living situation. And then I moved in with one of my best friends and this other woman. The other woman was drinking while I was living there. Um, yeah, sure. I'll share it. Like I was going through a rough time in my life. This is when me and you were just getting to know each other. And I was dealing with some personal stuff with my family, with my sister, as you know, and like some real unaddressed trauma that I hadn't dealt with for a long time. And then I was going through it, as you know, like crying every day, hurting like hell. And then, in my moment of weakness, I started sleeping with the woman that lived with me that was still drinking. And I ended up getting into this close to a fist fight with my best friend that I was living with while we were there. And, fighting over dirty dishes, basically. What the plague of communal living is dirty dishes. Like the best thing you can do in communal living situation is not be that guy. That is like the number one first place to start. you know,
Do your
I
dishes.
actually, yeah,
That's fantastic advice.
I think that's number one. I think that's number one for me. I think it's number one for a lot of other people. That's the main gripe that you will, have. And honestly, communal living is a huge part of me becoming a man because I was very enabled and coddled by my mom. So I moved into that Oxford house back in 2018 at 27 years old, 28 years old. Yeah, 27, 28. And I did not know how to clean up after myself. I was the guy with the dishes. And it was from being held accountable and the embarrassment of that made me like, yeah, I don't want to be this guy anymore. So I started, that's what changed my behavior. So in that, place that I lived after the bed bug house, this other place in Baltimore that I was living, um, you know, sleeping with a roommate that was drinking, almost getting into a fist fight, being angry at God when I was praying, just and then getting fired from FedEx. I almost forgot that part. Getting my truck stolen while working for FedEx. I had about 7 months clean. I was going to one meeting a week, and I was angry at God. I did not feel like I was a part of I wasn't working a program, and
You
I
didn't
was.
really want you didn't really want a job either. If we're totally
Oh,
rewinding and getting deep, you didn't really want a job either. And then you finally got one and you didn't hate it.
yeah, I actually liked it. Yeah, I liked working for FedEx. They paid me well. My day went by great, and I listened to podcasts every day. Working 6 days a week during the holiday rush wasn't fun, but it was, I was cool with doing it. And I was like, once this holiday rush is over, this job is going to be sweet. I'm in. Um, so I liked that job. So getting my truck stolen while going through all of this it was like the final straw. And I felt broken after that. I felt broken. And at 7 months clean, like, part of the thing that, going from the Oxford House to, some people in recovery, to some friends that weren't in recovery, part of my pride, was telling me that, the recovery house phase of my life is in the past. I'm past this. I'm far enough along in my recovery. I've experienced the recovery house lifestyle, and I don't need it anymore. I don't need that accountability anymore. But as as my sponsor, with like what I was going through, I I was worried that I wasn't going to make it through clean. So I had to humble myself, and I hit you up, and you kept like hinting, we got a bed open at the tradition house. We got a bed open at the tradition house. You weren't pushing it on me, but once, that after that near fist fight with my roommate and sleeping with a woman who was an active alcoholic, I was like, yeah, I it I was in a fork in the road. So thank God I ended up moving into the tradition house, man.
Let's say
Because
this. Let's say this part too, because for you having been at Tradition House now ever since, and seeing your life change in all these incredible ways, it would feel obvious now, right? That's of course that's the right choice. But at the time, I like that you actually pointed that out. That you already knew that wasn't what you needed.
yeah,
Because you'd already done that.
yeah,
Right. And I think that's very important to say, like you had conviction of why, no, I don't need to do that. And
yeah,
to give a shout out to Ryan, you were
yeah,
also sharing at meetings about
yeah.
what you were going through. So
Mhm.
you were doing what the program suggests of us, to share what we're going through while we're going through it. And because of that, somebody else who had been through the house, who it's hilarious too, because Ryan was very begrudging member of our early membership at the house,
I've
but we
heard the
loved
story.
Ryan.
Yeah,
Yeah, we love Ryan, and
yeah.
Ryan also changed as a person as a result of being involved at the house. He wanted
Mhm.
that for you enough to pay your way. What did he pay for the first week or two? I think,
For
right?
for a month. For a month.
For your first
Yeah,
month. Incredible,
yeah,
because there was no
yeah,
other way for you to. I mean, and that just is an incredible story, really.
yeah,
For you to overcome those obstacles and make it into the house.
yeah.
And I think it's worth
Shout
saying.
out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to say this. Shout out to Ryan. However, he told me not to tell people about it. So you knew it, and now you're telling
No, I
everybody
told him. So you didn't tell. I told him. Okay.
about it. Yeah, that's true. He told me. I didn't tell anybody. I just want that on the record.
I found out
Yeah.
because he paid me. So there you go.
Yeah, he didn't want to get caught. He did the good thing and didn't want
He
to
did
get
it for the
caught,
right reason. He did
Yeah,
it for the right reason, and thank God,
exactly.
because I
Yeah.
really don't know how things would look. I mean, you tell me, how would your life look if you had a continued,
I
in another
mean,
direction?
I I don't know. Like, I'm pretty, I don't know. I followed God's will and I'm clean today. But I could see the writing on the wall. I was in danger in every single way of relapse. And it's humbling to say, I have been a chronic relapser in my past. I no longer identify myself as a chronic relapser, but there was a time in my life where I was a chronic relapser, and I was not far removed from it. I had like 6, 7 months clean. Um, and part of the danger around relapse is self-pity. It says it in literature that self-pity is the most destructive of emotions. It's in a relapse chapter. I was dealing with self-pity, very deserved self-pity as far as I was concerned back then, with all the pain I was going through, with like, almost getting into a fight with my best friend and getting fired from FedEx all within a month. I felt sorry for myself. And the other thing is pride. Pride is a part of relapse for me. Thinking that the rules don't apply to me, or that I'm exempt from certain things, or, I've gotten clean this time and I'm serious, so relapse can't happen to me again. Um, but I think I had been humbled enough and I was in enough pain to recognize, like, dude, enough with the pride, enough of thinking that you're, better than this thing. You're in danger. And if you want to stay clean, you got to do something. And I got an opportunity to do something, and I made the right choice. Who knows if I'd be alive, or almost even worse, I would be just unable to stay clean and living. in that, because I don't want to live like that anymore. And all of the blessings that have come since then, I attribute it to that choice. To humbling myself to think like, there was this, there's this idea around recovery houses that at a certain amount of time clean, that that's not what you do anymore. Now you go out and get an apartment or something like that. You get on a lease to show your growth, financially, to get that out of the safety net. And living at a recovery house now for me has nothing to do with keeping me clean, or me needing to have drug tests or anything like that. Now it's like I just live with my brothers that I love dearly, and I get to watch them grow, and they get to help me grow. And I'm happy to see them when they get off work, or when we meet up in the living room and are just laughing. I live here because I want to, because I'm happy here. And I still have heard it
Yeah.
recently, from people that are like, "Well, you're still living there? Like, why? Like,
So,
when are you gonna move on?" You
so we
know?
recently went on a camping trip, where we took all the houses, the Gratitude Foundation. We went with Summit. We were planning actually for 49 people. We had signed up at the height of it, and because of rain,
Right.
we ended up with 28, I think. And we had some people that didn't stay the night too. But so we had this big camping trip, and one of the things that I did not expect that came out of it was almost exactly what you're talking about, where we had alumni from, like Joey, alumni from Tradition House, that said, I lived in the Tradition House for 4 years, and something else, I've lived there for 2.5 years, and for us it's like, well, there's no minimum stay and there's no maximum stay, so it's like, stay until you want to leave, stay until your life is so good that you're buying a house, or
Yeah.
whatever, but you don't have to leave.
Yeah.
And Mike Callen, we kind of had to, Mike C, geez, we had to kind of ask him to leave, because he was so ready to leave. He was no longer in tune with the newest guys, so
Mm.
we kind of had to ask him to leave. But even Mike, he didn't have to leave, because because to me that's one of those benefits. It's not a sentence, right? And there was
Yeah.
other guys that were in a recovery program that they're not there yet, right? They're brand new, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to stay here for 6 months. I might be here for 9 months, almost like it's a sentence.
Yeah.
And you guys were on the other end of the spectrum. Like, how grateful am I to be at this place? And me too. I mean, I was staying in the Ohm house with like 8.5 years clean.
Yeah.
And I had gone from, a big house and a relationship, and here I am back in a room. I loved it.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
I loved it. It was a great just to be in that space again, and to, be, be just a member of the house. And you're such a valuable member of the house, because you can share from your heart, just like you just did. Right.
Thank
It's so nice to help others open up just by being your genuine self like that too.
Thank you. Yeah, it to me, when, I don't like when people ask, like, give the humbling talk about, like, well, when are you going to let the safety net go, or when are you going to move on, type of stuff. I just say, like, I'm happy there. I just answer with that. But to me, on the internal, like when talking with guys who actually live and have lived long term, especially here at the Tradition House, like, to me, if you are to stay here for years at a time, the thing that I think is the criteria for that to continue making sense is to be in a position of either leadership, or um, at least providing a good example, and being engaged. Like, if you don't feel engaged in here, and it's just cheap rent, and you don't feel a need to, like, strengthen bonds, and get newer guys under your wing, then you're just doing it for cheap rent. And I don't really respect that. And at that point, it is like a safety net, and it's like, just move on, like, if you need to move on professionally and make more money, then do that. Like, so it can become arrested development, because it's almost like you're taking up a space for somebody else. But
That's a great
I
point.
mean, the thing is a Tradition House. It's like we have like two guys with under a year clean, and the vast majority of people here are 2.5+ years clean. And and it's like we haven't needed to take like new guys and show them the ropes. It's not a huge thing, but now it's just like about us helping each other's recovery and just, you know, keeping the bonds in place. And it's like, why would I want to move away from some of my best friends? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not afraid to tell anybody. I really believe that communal living is a more natural way to live. I don't think we're
Yeah.
all supposed to be sequestered off in our own little boxes where we don't
Yeah.
interact with anybody except for when we're at work, and then we go home and we're completely alone with our screens. I don't think that is the better way to live. I think,
Yeah.
you know, you have your own space, you know, you've got your own room, you've got, you know, plenty of alone time, but you know, to be able to go down and, you know, be in the living room. And that was for me,
Yeah.
right? Let me just say it this way. For me, that was the biggest change that I had in my personality, is when I finally would just go and be in the communal space,
Yeah.
regardless of what I was feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
Petros, he had to experience a lot of me yelling at him when nothing was his fault, right? From me taking out my anger sidewards, but like being able to actually experience what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it allowed me to actually become who I am, right? Get in touch with where I'm really at so I can make adjustments, or even just have those uncomfortable conversations about, you know, the dishes. How do we actually all get together and deal with real problems? Well, we have to talk about them.
Yeah.
Whoa, what? That's
Yeah.
not how I was raised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a part of growing up. And it's bled into so many different areas of my life in the best of ways. I'm so much better at being direct now, and so much better at, you know, it just is a perfect application of what step work and, you know, the program has taught me. Like, there's gonna be people's shortcomings are gonna come out, and if I'm noticing a resentment earlier in my recovery, it would just be like, well, just talk about them behind their back.
Hmm.
You know, that's what we're used to, and that's what most people do instead of just addressing it directly. And I even do it at work now with guys that are, you know, the recovery house blues or the treatment center blues of residential treatment. Just be like, you know, whenever I hear people talking behind their back, I give them an example of uh, how they can address it directly. I'm like, yeah, I quote you all the time with what you say to me all the time, which is, you know, say what you mean what you say, don't say it mean. Um, if this is causing you anger, you can say, you know, this is really bothering me, and you don't have to say it with anger,
Yeah.
and just address it directly. And it's such a better way of living. And by doing that in a living situation, you're able to do it at work. You're able to do it in other communities. Like, I'm a part of multiple communities outside of recovery, huge part of my life. It's like recovery is probably 60% of my life, and 40% is the other stuff that has nothing to do with recovery, it has to do with spirituality and stuff like that. And I carry those principles with me into those spaces too. And I always get love and acknowledgement for it. And I'm always like, yeah, my secret weapon is the 12 steps, and I never thought of it before, but also like living at this recovery house, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So what step are you on now?
I'm on step 10, and I've been pretty good about my nightly inventory. I made, as you know, I made my own inventory prompt sheet, and I dropped writing it out, and I just uh, I just look at the questions and answer them out loud or in my head, and it's been tremendous. Like, yesterday was one of my best ones where I was like, oh wow, where I was surprised by how well I did that day, even though at the end of the
You
day
weren't
I wasn't.
internalizing it. You weren't
Yeah, I wasn't
internalizing it the same
sure.
way you'd actually experienced it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, the whole day it felt like I was just really busy. And I was like, "Oh, wow, I actually checked all these boxes without being like, oh, I need to check these boxes." You know? Like, "Oh, I did do breath work today. Oh, I did meditate today. I did go to the gym. I did eat well." All of that stuff. It was a good, yeah. Prepping
That's
for
awesome.
step 11.
Yeah. No, I know you're going to have a great experience with step 11 too,
I'm
because
excited.
you're ready for it, and you are seeking, right? You've
Mm,
been very involved in seeking your spirituality, and being involved with it. I can't wait. I can't wait.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, let's talk too a little about some of the stuff that you do that keeps you grateful, that keeps you happy, things that like the breath work, like the meditation. We share a home group that's a meditation meeting, but even the extracurricular stuff. If you want to share some of those things that make you happy in your life and makes your life fulfilling. They say a grateful addict will never use again. So gratitude and being grateful for your life is super important.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the Donnelly House, Mike, what he told me early on was, you better get to work making your life a place that you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about some of the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, alone time wise, exercise has been such a good way of me keeping my head on straight. And it's been harder to be consistent with it, yet I need it more now than ever. Because of I'm getting more and more responsibilities at work, and I'm dealing with a lot of adult stuff like buying a new car and having my auto loan issues with that. You know about that. But and I've just felt like I have a lot on my plate. So days like yesterday where it's like, well, I don't care how tired I am, go to the gym, and it helped so much. Other than that, a big aspect of what needed to be recovered in recovery was being an artist. My part of my story was, DJing in the rave scene and using so much, and my addiction kept that from going further into creating in new and scarier ways. So producing music and having visual art and everything like that. And my sense of self being so negative back then, I had no idea that's what was happening back then, but I know now that my self-loathing, perfectionism, and just not good enoughness and not worthy stuff kept me from progressing in that, and also made me self-destructed. So something that came up for me in my recovery was recognizing a part of the pain I'm dealing with in recovery is that I'm an artist not making art. And that was like, okay, that's the realization. But the thing is realizing that doesn't mean that all of the blocks and the shadow between me and that are gone now. So it's been hard won experience to deal with my perfectionism, deal with sucking at a new thing, like teaching myself how to produce right now. If I sucked at something, like the reason I was able to DJ and stick with that is because I was good right off the bat. Like I figured out this formula and it was fun right off the bat, and I was able to perform well right off the bat. Anything
And
that
I should
yeah,
say, I like the way that Amber says it back. Halsey was a regionally famous DJ.
regionally famous. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how she says that. And she was actually somebody who would travel down to see you because you
Yeah.
were a famous DJ.
Regionally
So
famous.
regionally famous. Yeah, so I think that's worth stating too, though, that you genuinely had real talent. You were doing something with it.
Yeah, so that was one of the most traumatic events of my life, was having this, like, overnight we got lucky with a lot of exposure really quickly, and we were providing something that was unique at the time, and we started getting booked all the time overnight, and we put our whole heart and soul into it. It was me and this other guy, and I thought I had found the thing. I thought I solved the problem. Like, what's wrong with me? It's like, oh, I found the thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to create music and I'm going to perform. And, addiction came up, and I couldn't wear the mask anymore. And I self-destructed. And the traumatic thing about that is that I went from being regionally famous in a duo to me and the guy who started it together. We broke up. And then I was a washed up solo act whose addiction was getting worse and worse, and still trying to perform because I didn't know what else to do. And the embarrassment of that, of I failed, and I don't have the thing I used to have. And after I got clean, I actually stopped performing because all I was getting booked for was raves, and I didn't want to DJ at raves anymore. I had 6 months clean, and I got booked to do one actually with my old duo, with my old partner. And I went there, and I didn't want to use, But I noticed that I was like thinking about my little pocket that I used to keep drugs in, and I didn't have anything there. And I was around all these people who were using, and I was just uncomfortable the whole time. I had no fun. So I just was like, I guess this is in my past now. And after some step work and some cleaning up, and I realized like, no, this is something that I do want to keep doing, and I want to take it further. Like I want to create music. I want to, make art. Um, Shit, how do I do that? I'm scared. Um, and that's been a hard one experience as well. And I found this thing called ecstatic dance. That is the biggest part of my life outside of recovery that makes me have a life that I want to live. And over the past 3 years, almost like in August, it'll be 3 years that I've been doing it. Every single year has been better than the year before. Every single year it's grown. Every single year, I've had more and more people. I've gotten better at it and more understanding of what it is that I'm providing. My ego has gotten less and less wrapped up in it, and more it's become a thing that I recognize as service, as something that I want to do for people, that it offers people um, a meaningful experience. And over these years, like I've gotten more and more people telling me like, listen, your ecstatic dance was the first one I ever went to, and my life has been different ever since. I've heard that at every dance for like this year so far, which is profound and incredible. And I it's so funny because I didn't get any of those bits of feedback until my ego was less involved with it.
Mm.
It's funny how God works. Until I recognize, no, it's not about how many people come to my events. It's more about the personal impact of each individual. And, I stopped resenting my friends for not coming to my events and started recognizing, oh, no, it's a matter of alignment. Whoever aligns with their schedule or wanting to show up or whatever, whoever aligns and shows up for that, that is God's will for the people, for like the medicine that you're providing, and the meaningful experience you're providing. And ever since then, it's grown more. And I had this realization at a certain point that, I have ambition when it comes to this stuff. That is it is a part of my makeup. And that doesn't necessarily need to mean ego, though. Ambition, I've come to understand that God's will for me with my ambition is that I'm to do this out of trying to help as many people as possible. And that's why there's ambition for it. That I it's not me that has a talent for doing this. It's God has given me the capacity to do this so that I can help others. And it's not me that created talent or is able to do this. It is God that gave it to me. And so I can give it to others.
I feel that
And
very deeply too, and I think there's something that is just as unattractive as a pronounced ego, where it's look at me, as somebody who actually is doing something amazing and has this false humility, which is
mm,
something that I struggle with a lot. Right, that was
mm,
something that I really had to come to grips with. Is that like I am okay. Like it's okay that I'm doing things that help people. It's okay that I'm, I'm here, being, on camera. Like it's okay that I exist and that I do good things. That was so, I'd much rather, slink away and just do my service work hidden away
uh,
where no one notices me. But there's a falseness to that ego side as well,
yeah.
and you genuinely are helping people. You genuinely are, it's amazing what you do up there. And I'll say, I maybe didn't have as strong of a breakthrough as a lot of people, but what I got from that dance that you did for the Gratitude Foundation fundraiser, what I got was a confirmation that I am able to get out of that comfort zone and be myself.
Hmm.
And it was like I granted myself permission, which I don't know if you remember me telling you a story, but it was very difficult for me socially to be around people. So what I used to do, I got my seltzer water here. I'll give you an example. Before I would go to like a big NA event or like a cookout or whatever, I would sit in my car and I would drink like Perrier, pretending like it was like vodka, or I would
Mm.
drink, my seltzer water and pretend like it was beer. And it was sort of like I would get in that I'm drunk mindset.
Yeah.
But really what I was
Pass it
doing
up.
is, yes, I was granting myself permission to be at ease and be social. But it turns out I don't need alcohol to do that, right? So that
Yeah.
was like a big thing for me. And at the dance with you, it was like I got to tap into that and let loose, right? And it was amazing, right? I'm having this great time. And then a few other people walked in who are too cool for school. They're not able to let down that guard. And it was in that, seeing them, that I was actually able to let in for myself, like, wow, this really is doing something really great for me, right? To be able
Mm.
to be in a place where, even if it's not my thing, I enjoyed it and I got to really like be in the moment. And I remembered vividly when that wasn't even an option for me,
Yeah.
right? Where I wasn't able to just let loose. And I was really grateful for you doing that, and probably
Yeah.
pushing me to be there because of, because of it.
So what's coming up for me, I kind of want to bring this back because I know this is about communal living. So like,
Yeah.
what I was thinking of when you were talking about being at the House and what is it, the Donnelly House,
Mhm.
how it provided, because I know your story, I know about you in early recovery, and I know how, you came in like, I hate people. I don't like people. I don't need people. And that's like this defense mechanism built up and your addiction is all wrapped up in it and your identity is all wrapped up in it. And recognizing that part of the healing process was, um, you know, pride, humility and pride and like all that stuff. It exists on a spectrum, but both things that aren't humility is both like being too arrogant or being, what's the word, like meek or something like that, where um you want to be silent, you want to hide away, you don't want to get credit for stuff, or I'm grandiose and I'm, God's gift to the earth. Both of them are not humble. So
Right.
like you had to bring yourself up.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm the exact opposite of that. I needed to bring myself down.
Yeah.
So what I was uncomfortable with, and I had some over this last winter, it got internalized on a deeper level about, and living in communal living actually helped me with this because there's conversations happening around me all the time, and I always felt the need of, if I'm not leading the conversation or my voice isn't the at least a big part of it, if not the biggest part of it, then I'm not good enough. Or like I wrapped up what I have to say and attention on me as my value and as my worth. So what I had to, what humility meant for me was recognizing like sometimes I can listen more during than speak, and really only pop in when it has to do with helping the conversation and allowing and help and supplementing what somebody else is saying more so than me having to be the center of it. And that came up for me in ecstatic dance as well, that like going to other people's events, that I didn't need to be the most rambunctious person there, and afterwards I didn't have to be the most outspoken
Mhm.
person there. And it was very uncomfortable because God put me in that place where I didn't feel comfortable doing that anymore, but I still hadn't gotten used to being in the middle yet. So like there was like a real bruising of the ego that happened, that I was like, dude, you can exist in the space and just take up space. You don't have to be heard. You don't have to be seen. You can just be a part of. And that's like real the difference between fitting in and belonging, you know. And I say the reason I wanted to bring that back to communal living is because that happened here more than anywhere else in my life before. And it aligned along with the step working journey and everything, and the ecstatic dance, and it's so funny how that all works. And the main place where like the practice came in was the many conversations that are happening in the living room at my house, and a perfect place for me to practice it is like, and a perfect place for me to fall short on it and to be forgiven, and not judged for it, you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great, actually, that really is a great lesson too, just for somebody, a lot of what I've heard you talk about here is actually being able to be uncomfortable, being
Yeah.
able to be uncomfortable and get through it, being able to be
Exactly.
uncomfortable and get through it. And I think that's a huge lesson for all of us that are in recovery. And normally our reflexes get uncomfortable and then go use,
Yeah.
being able to get through that. And I think all of that too, stems back to relationships. So I guess tell us a little about how you build relationships and what that looks like for you.
So okay, so one of the things that I've had to take a look at and be really cognizant of is like, okay, when it's people in recovery and 12-step stuff, that's the easier form of like, oh wow, I like this person, or they could use support. So when I think of somebody, as a rule of thumb, I reach out to them and I let them know, like, hey, let's do something. Like, we don't have to just run into each other at meetings. Let's like talk on the phone, or I invite them to the many things that are happening in our lives. But one of the things I've had to take a look at is like I said, I have ambition and I want this like ecstatic dance thing to grow. So one of the things I noticed myself doing last year in particular, before a little bit more humility was given to me by God, was I was being really strategic about that, about who I was connecting with. And I was being strategic to like, okay, if I can become better friends with this person, then I know they know a lot of people. So that means more people will know my name, which means more people will come to my events, and more like it's just good for my career. And when I recognized that happening, I was like, okay, that's not how I want to show up in my life. And I don't think that's God's will for me. So now I just want to be an active member of community. So what that means to me is if I feel a resonance with somebody, because like outside of the rooms, unless I know somebody, like we have a thing here where people are obviously in need of support, and you can see it clearly, even if they're not asking for it. You can see when people just need people. That's not necessarily the case in different communities, not always. Sometimes it is. Some people, but we don't see each other as much, so you don't know. But now it's more like when it's in outside of the rooms, it's about like, dude, if I have a resonance with somebody, then I want to make it a point of like to strengthen bonds, to be a part of a community, and to help community to grow and to strengthen their bonds. And that's me really just wanting more of what I got in 12-step recovery to be more of a thing in other places, because
Practice these principles in all our affairs.
exactly. And because I love how close I am and how loved I am from so many people, that just come so naturally in a good area of a 12-step fellowship. And just wanting to have that in more of, I want that for more of humanity. So the best way for me to do that is wherever I find myself in community, just practicing those principles there, because I want that there too. And it made me think of when we were doing like working on my ninth step, and I realized that I was, when I was making amends to people, that something I noticed with the people I was making, like everybody I made amends to, like directly in person, I recognized the very obvious like energy that they were lonely. It was obvious to me. And I brought it up to you, and I thought there was some kind of there was some kind of message, there's some kind of thing about the people that I harmed, and now they're all lonely. Like it's my fault. And you pointed out, you were like, no, like you got to realize most people in society are lonely. Most people don't live in a communal situation. Most people have like roommates they don't even know, or they live alone, and don't have communities that they're a part of, that they see people on a weekly basis. Um, and that really stuck with me. And I've thought about that a lot. And something I've noticed is like, man, I just want to, like, by strengthening bonds with somebody that I feel resonant with, that I'm just one small part of them not being lonely, you know? And the more people we have like that, because I agree with you. like in terms of living, but also, I can't live with everybody. So, um, like, I think that we're naturally kind of built to be in community. We
Yeah.
really are. That's
Well, I
how
think
we're wired.
what's happened with you too, because think about, I think about myself when I was maybe not even when my addiction was at its worst, right? Even just like growing up through high school. And I think about all these people that are like in apartment buildings that they wouldn't even imagine wanting to talk to their neighbor.
Yeah.
And part of that is because they don't know themselves that well. So it's like, I don't know how to draw emotional boundaries to say, okay, I'm done talking now, right? Like, how do I
Yeah.
separate from someone? And like, am I staying too long, right? I was usually the one that would stay too long, right? I wouldn't know when to leave. I wouldn't know how to excuse myself. I didn't know how desperate for connection I was, right?
Mm,
And I think, what's happened to you is you've experienced this healing. You've experienced a higher level of freedom. And what happens when our cup is filled is we just naturally want to spread that, right? We
yeah.
naturally want to spread that happiness to other people, including, just smiling at the other people in a store and saying hi, here and there on the street. Like, that was a big thing that Herb shared with me is, service work and, being the person that you want to be in the world doesn't mean you necessarily have to save everyone in the world. Just by showing your light, and being your most genuine self, that is sharing God's love. That is like, making things better in our own little way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I should give Herb credit too, because Herb is the one who just hammered it into me. Mean what you say, but don't say it mean.
Ah,
Over
yeah.
and over and over again until I finally stopped being crazy with people. But
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
the two things I think of most that you and Bill both hammered into me the most is that, mean what you say what you mean, don't say it mean, and also live in the solution, not the problem. And those are the two of the things that have probably like simple sayings that when incorporated have changed my life for the better in the most ways.
yeah,
Because when you're in the problem, like why by focusing on solution stuff, even if something is going to take forever to get better, by focusing on the solution, um like hope is so much more possible. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's a big one. So I'm going to ask you a similar line before we close, but I wanted to know before that, um, what's like, what's something that you're like a big dream for the future that you are looking forward to, or that you want to accomplish, in line with like gratitude and, what we're looking forward to in the future, building on what we have. What's something that you are looking forward to? Kind of think of it.
um well, it's funny because at work today I led a peer group, and I decided I wanted it to be about gratitude. And the whole point of the peer group was recognizing that gratitude is an action word. So the whole point of the entire thing was, okay, this is the thing we're grateful. So how are we going to act on that today? What is the thing you can do today that shows your gratitude? Doesn't say your gratitude, shows it. And one of the things I recognized was, one of the main things I am grateful for is what's happening with, me creating art and creating experiences for people. And the best way the most obvious way is for me to just keep doing what I'm doing and just stay consistent with it. Because consistency over everything else, over talent, over everything else, is the reason why it's grown and become better and better. And I've become better at it. But to take it a step further, a way for me to show gratitude for not just that purpose of providing meaningful, artful experiences for people, but also gratitude for all of the work that I've done to heal, and recognizing that I've always had this little whisper in my head that, before I was acting on it was hurting me because I wasn't acting on it. And now that I'm acting on it, it's still there to just keep me going further, is to, a huge thing that I could like was a mountain to climb, was learning how to produce music and create my own music, not just make mashups of other people's music, but to create something that's truly original, that's from me. So my gratitude for that is by, paying somebody to teach me how to do it, and for me practicing it in my, in my alone time. And so that is my goal. Like, I know that what I ultimately want is, I love my job and I have no plans on leaving it. But like, the end goal for me, and the one that I hope God's will for me is, and I feel God's will for me is to really dedicate my life to that and get it to a point where I can financially sustain myself on it. And like I said, the ambition being God's will to help as many people as possible, is me really like living that in every way that I possibly can, which means, the ultimate, final boss of that for me is producing music and sucking at something and continuing to do it anyways, which is hard. It's painful. It's not fun, and it's frustrating, but I've gotten far enough in my life. And I've learned enough through staying clean and getting better at other things that I know it is possible now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's so important for people to hear, especially if they're somebody who is looking to move into recovery housing, right? It's that you see guys like us that are living lives that we love, and we're successful and we're clean, and like we have things that we're looking forward to. That was not obvious when we were the ones moving into the house, right?
No.
Like it was not
No.
obvious.
Yeah.
And it was because we stuck it out. It was because we surrendered deeper into our programs when we had problems that came up. We turned to other people and asked for help, which
Yep.
was so uncomfortable,
So uncomfortable.
over and over again. And yet that's where the help is. So
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful lesson. What I want to do is, if you would like, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to be released, because this is a very new interview series, so
Well,
hopefully sooner rather than later. But if there's anything that you would like to plug, would certainly like to give you that opportunity, from your YouTube channel to Ecstatic Dance. I believe there's a bigger thing that's coming up as well. You tell us.
a bigger thing. Uh, Depends on when this is coming out. So, my ecstatic dance schedule has already booked up crazy, up until fall. I'm pretty busy all summer. Um, so the best way to find out about that stuff and to get involved, and even find out what ecstatic dance is by following me on Instagram, actually. So HP Tellem 9, that's Tellem, Tellem, HP Tellem 9 on Instagram. Um, that's the main way to find out what I'm doing in terms of offering events. The YouTube channel is kind of on the back burner right now, but I actually have my next video in mind. It's just about, I have peer recovery support certification to finish. I have a bunch of events coming up, so it's like I only have so much time in the day. But I know once the time comes, I will be releasing more and more videos on that. And that is a labor of love that I truly cherish. Researching a topic of some sort and then creating an entertaining video that I feel is useful for people. I love doing it. The next one I think I'm going to do is on Christian anarchy. So maybe by the time this comes out, that video will be out. I don't know. So HP Tellem on YouTube. And yeah, I have a newsletter and email list that you can find on my link tree on my Instagram as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, last question that we can close with here. If you could give some advice to someone who is maybe on the fence about whether they would benefit from moving into communal living or not, what would be your advice for them?
I mean, I would have to speak from my experience, which is my barrier to going into the best living situation that I've ever had, which is the one I have right now. My barrier between me and there, that almost made me not do it, is don't let pride stop you or make you think that, I'm at a certain level in my recovery, or I'm at a certain level financially, that this should be behind me. That's for other people That's for newer people. That's for people that are underemployed or whatever the reason that makes you think that you're better than that. Recognizing that the amount of money you make, uh, how much clean time you have, um, it should not be the thing between you and considering doing it. Like absolutely not. Because if I let that happen, I don't know if I'd be clean today, and I definitely wouldn't be in a situation as perfect for me as the situation I'm in now. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for being a part of this. I feel like we probably could do another hour or two,
Yeah.
and it just means you have to come on again later, and
All right.
especially to share your experience with the 11th step would be amazing too.
Okay.
When you get down the line, I think that would be great. So guys like Halsey that are that are living with their heart open, and that means going through pain with his heart open, going through the good stuff and sharing that. Somebody can learn a lot from being around somebody like you, and you never know all the ripple effects that you make in people's lives. So I really appreciate you being on here. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Just by closing, I want to say briefly that the views and opinions expressed here are not those of any specific 12-step program. We obviously, like our name Gratitude Speaks comes from the NA program, but we are not Narcotics Anonymous. We don't pretend to represent them in any way. We're unaffiliated. In any 12-step fellowship that we're from, whether that's AA or ACA or SLA or any of them, we're just members, and these are our own individual opinions. We're happy to get to share with you. Gratitude is a very powerful tool. I hope you tune into another episode, and we'll see you then. Thanks for being here.
God bless. Thanks, brother.